Now, Chief Papard, class is yours.
All right, thank you, sir. Well, to begin, I suppose we should do some introductions. Like Colonel Weber said, I am Chief Papard. I am the first sergeant for Tri-Cities Composite Squadron, but because I hold no rank at this class at Washington Mission Academy, I will be addressed as Chief. If I was at my squadron, I would be addressed as First Sergeant. So, Chief Wynn, I pass the floor to you so you can get us started with the class.
Good morning, or I guess good afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Wynn. I am also the Cadet First Sergeant for my own squadron, the Renton Composite Squadron. And again, since I am not at my own squadron and I am not the First Sergeant for this event, I will also be addressed as Chief Wynn for today. And so, I believe since we're not doing the Kahoot, we will jump right into the first presentation. So first off, we're going to go over the 4 core values of the Civil Air Patrol. Now, right off the bat, does anyone know what the 4 core values of the Civil Air Patrol are? You can just unmute yourself or just type in the chat. And Chief Papard, if you could just read off the chat if anyone types there, because I cannot see the chat. Anyone know at all?
Maybe somebody knows one of them.
Yeah, you don't have to say all 4. One works.
Well, Cadet Airman First Class Cleve, I believe I said your last name right. All right. They said all of them, which is integrity, respect, excellence, and service before self, which is the Air Force core values, but we kind of play off of their core values. So, Chief Wynn, you can explain that.
All right, good job. So, like before, the 4 core values in the Civil Air Patrol are integrity, volunteer service, excellence, and respect. There are 4 of them. And the core values of the Civil Air Patrol are different than the Air Force's. So you just got to keep that in mind if you know both of them and separate the 2, right? So in this presentation, I'm going to go over the meaning.
Is supposed to be there?
The meaning and how to show these 4 core values of the Civil Air Patrol. So before we do that, the reason why we have core values is to set higher standards for all members. This includes senior members and cadets, right? And so the main reason is because we want to reflect how we treat others and cast a good image on the organization. Because when we put on this uniform, or any uniform that is CAP related, we are representing the Civil Air Patrol and the United States Air Force. Because if you walk out in the middle of like the street, I guess, normal people probably wouldn't be able to distinguish the Civil Air Patrol uniform and the United States Air Force uniform. So we don't want to be goofing around and casting a bad image on both organizations as a whole. We want to be keeping up our standards and acting at our highest. So our first core value is integrity. In the book, and like the book definition of integrity is doing what's right when no one is looking. So this means that even though no one is looking at you and no one's like trying to catch you doing something wrong, you want to act like there is someone looking at you and there's someone monitoring you. This just means you won't be bending the rules when there's no one there. You won't try to cheat. You won't try to do anything like that, right? So this applies to normal weekly meetings, but and one example of this is during opening formation. So this is opening formation is when everyone in the squadron goes to their assigned spot, basically, and they stand there to take roll. And when this happens, the cadet staff will usually turn around and stop looking at the normal cadets and look at the cadet commander. And when this happens, well, not technically, but theoretically, you could do anything and no one would know, right? Because no one has their eyes turned to you. So you could just wobble your head, look around, wobble your arms, and I guess no one would know because no one has their eyes turned to you. But since we have integrity, you don't want to do that. You want to stand there looking straight ahead at the position you were assigned at. So at ease, attention, parade rest, either one of those. And just stay there. You don't want to do anything else. Just follow your directions and do it. Another example is if, let's say, someone lost their wallet in a parking lot. If you don't have integrity, what you would do is just look in the wallet and take everything out, right? But we're not like that. In CAP, we hold ourselves to a higher standard than everyone else. And instead of doing that, we would try to find the owner of the wallet, or let's say find the manager of a nearby store to find the rightful owner of that wallet, right? And lastly, I'm sure most of us are still in school and haven't graduated yet, but let's say you're in school and you walk in the hallways, and in my experiences, usually there's no one in the hallways, so you could almost do anything, but you don't want to do that because, again, we have integrity. We're doing what's right, even though no one is looking. So instead of running in the hallways and talking to your friends, just go where you're going as quick as you can and just get where you're trying to go. So that's basics of integrity. Next off, we have volunteer service. So volunteer service is what holds the Civil Air Patrol together, because without volunteer service, we wouldn't be here. Civil Air Patrol is a nonprofit organization, which means we're all volunteers and we're not getting paid to be here, right? So if you think about it, none of us have to be here. We joined because we wanted to join. No one's telling us to do anything. So the importance of volunteer service is that it benefits the community, and it also lowers costs of a bunch of different programs that we're able to participate in, most notably NCSAs and WAMA, like what we're doing right here. And so because we're all volunteers, we can do things at a lower cost. If you were at the last lesson for NCSAs, you've learned that there are numerous different events that take place over the course of the year normally, but since this year we have COVID, it's a little bit different. But you can join a bunch of different programs, and usually the price is considerably, like really low compared to if you were not part of CAP. And then there's also WAMA. WAMA is what we're doing right now. Usually it would be in person and you would stay over for the weekend, but since we have COVID, we can't do that. But usually we stay over the weekend, and if you compare a weekend getaway or something like that, we can camp, to WAMA. Usually those would be much higher of a cost than WAMA. WAMA, I'm pretty sure you just pay for food. But yeah, that's the benefits of volunteer service, and that's what we do. Now for excellence in CAP, it means to keep a high standard for yourself and others. And we show excellence by wearing our uniform correctly. So as you can see, I'm all in uniform like everyone else. And at my squadron, we have a saying that there's one way to wear the uniform, and that's the correct way. This is because when we put on this uniform, like I said before, we represent the CAP and the United States Air Force at the same time. So you don't want to cast a bad image on both organizations by wearing your uniform correctly. You want to wear 100% correctly all the time. And you don't want to be goofing around in your uniform either. And another way you can show excellence in the CAP is by memorizing all your required materials. So in the CAP, we have things you have to remember. One of these things is the cadet oath, and another are the core values, which you're learning about today. So you just want to memorize all these things we give you. Usually, we just give you a little packet called an SOP with all the required memorization requirements. And what I do to study is I just go over all of them and stick on one at a time. So let's say I'm trying to memorize the core values. I would stick on the core values until I memorize them. So what I would do is just read it over to myself over and over and over again until I can close my eyes and say them without reading them. That's what I do. People study in different ways, but that's what I found that works for me. And lastly, the last way you can show excellence, or not the last way, but another last example you can show excellence during weekly meetings is to try your best at weekly meetings, right? So during weekly meetings, your squadron would probably have you participate in drill and other lessons and activities during that meeting. So by showing your best, doing your best, you're showing that you're putting your 100% effort in, and everyone just likes to see that. And excellence, it does mean that you're doing everything right, but most of the time that's not the case because we're humans and we can't do that. So by showing that you are participating with 100% attention, that's all you need to do. Easiest way to show excellence. And lastly, we have respect. In a nutshell, respect is treating others with the same fairness and dignity. The reason why respect is a core value is because the CAP would not be the same without it. This is because we are held together by the chain of command. I will go over that later in the lesson. The chain of command is basically just a tier of leadership roles and how orders are given. And for that to work, you need to respect a person that is higher up than you, right? Without respect, then nothing would work. And in your book, right, when you join CAP, you should be shipped a book that looks something like this. This is the volume 2. I can't find my volume 1, but it looks something like this, except with a different picture. It's a blue book that is shipped to you. And in this book, it has all the leadership stuff you need to learn to promote. You can learn all about respect by reading your leadership book and what you should do. But in a nutshell, what we're going to cover today is customs courtesies and the chain of command. But in CAP, we also work as a team, and we show overall politeness to almost everyone, not almost everyone, but everyone in CAP. But yeah, that's all the core values in a nutshell. So now we're going to expand on one of the core values, the core value of excellence, and learn about how to maintain and wear your uniform.
All right, thank you, Chief Wynn. So I will be taking over now, and I will be presenting my screen in a second here. So, welcome to Airman Leadership School, as we've already discussed. And first off, I will be talking about hair and like cosmetics and everything like that until we get into uniforms after that. So, starting off with just some general hair requirements for everyone. Since we are an auxiliary of the Air Force, we're supposed to be very professional and clean and well-groomed, like it says. Your hair must allow wear for all of your covers, no matter what, either boonie hats, the normal covers, or the flight caps. They must fit properly without any weirdness. Your hair may not include excessive product. Now, ladies, if you know how to do your hair, then sometimes we like to just glob a whole bunch of gel and slick it back and make a helmet. I used to do that, but it's not very professional and it's actually against the regs as it says. And your hair may not touch either eyebrow or end below an imaginary line. Now, my hair is short but also long, so this one I have to pay a special attention to. And the imaginary line goes from the top of your eyebrows down to behind your ears. So if my hair gets too long or in the way, then I just follow that line and then tuck it behind my ears. Wow, my hair's in regs now. All colorants you put in your hair must result in a natural color. So I'm a natural blonde. I've dyed my hair black and brown a few times. So they resulted in natural colors, even though it's not my natural color. But the examples of natural colors are black, brown/brunette, gray, blonde, and a natural red. Prohibited colors, this is not all the prohibited colors, but anything that's not listed in natural colors, you cannot dye your hair that color. So like burgundy, orange, purple, or fluorescent colors. Are there any questions on that? You can like raise your hand or just unmute yourself, anything like that. Okay. I skipped a few. Okay, male hair grooming standards. They're very specific, but you don't totally have to follow them exactly. You should be following the regulations, but you don't have to be a stickler for them as an airman. So just some general rules, like they should have a tapered look on all sides to where it starts shorter at the bottom, gets longer at the top, things like that. May not touch your ears at all around the sides, so just like cut it or shave it around that area. Your hair may not extend out from your cover band. Now, what this is like this. Like that. You can see my hair, which is against the regulations. So that's just an example of that. So your hair at the back or base of your neck cannot go over your collar. Now, it may touch your collar, but it cannot go over it. So have it either closely shaven or trimmed up to where it does not pass over the top. Some authorized cuts, other than the tapered style, are cleanly shaven, military high and tight, or flat tops. So you can pretty much just look up Air Force style haircuts, and then there you go. You probably have an in-regs hairstyle, but just ask around if you're not sure. So for mustaches, for males, you may have a mustache, but the only regulations are it may not go past the corners of your mouth on either side, and it may not extend past the bottom of your lip line. So it can't go on top of your lip or past the corners of your mouth. Sideburns. Sideburns must be cleanly shaven and like trimmed up so they're not like sticking out in odd ends, and they may not flare out or taper or anything like that. They should end in a horizontal clean line. And it also may not go past your ear orifice, which I didn't even know what that was, but it's basically just the hole in your ear. It may not go past to where it's like at your earlobe and stuff. So beards. Beards are completely unauthorized. You have to have a cleanly shaven face, no visible hair except for a mustache if you want one. And those are the basics for male hair grooming standards. Are there any questions on that so far for males?
There's one question in the chat,
Okay.
which states, are all shades of blonde allowed?
If it's a natural blonde, I'm assuming like platinum blonde isn't allowed, but if you have like dirty blonde or a light blonde or like a bit of a darker blonde, then that's totally fine. Anything that you were like born with, then sure, it's in regulations. Does that answer your question?
And then another question says, what if you aren't allowed to shave?
Okay, I'm gonna have to know who asked that question to hopefully, oh, there's the chat. Okay. Airman Scott, if you're not allowed to shave, that is a predicament, isn't it? I don't completely know how to answer that. Is there any specific reason you aren't allowed to? I mean, if you can't answer that, then that's fine.
I don't know. My dad just said I can't.
Okay. Since we're in like virtual stuff, then it's probably fine. No one's going to make you shave if you're like not allowed to. Just talk to your dad about it and be like, hey, it's in regs, I have to shave. If he won't let you, then it's fine. Just talk to your squadron about it. And then A1C, I believe, asked, your hair is 2 shades of blonde. Is it natural? Like, did you originally have 2 shades of blonde, or did you dye it personally?
I've dyed my hair, but it was originally a platinum blonde, and it is faded into a light, almost like brown gray,
Okay.
or blondish. It's like a brown blonde, so it's like the end is more white and the top is more brown.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably fine.
Okay.
They look natural to me, so you should be.
Yeah.
All right. Oh. Okay. Now, moving on to female hair grooming styles. If there are no other questions on males or anything like that. Are we all good to go? All right. So, female hair grooming standards. There is no specific minimum length for females, but there's a maximum bulk of 3.5 inches. Now, I don't expect you guys to take a ruler, stick in your hair, and measure 3.5 inches, but just gauge it in a mirror and say, that looks fine for bulk. And there you go. One thing is that your hair may not touch any part of the collar. So for males, you are allowed to have your hair touch the collar, but for females, no hair is allowed to touch the collar or go past it. Even if it doesn't touch it, it cannot go below the collar. So there's another imaginary line that you guys have to follow. It goes from the top of your collar in the back straight across horizontally to the front. And the same thing from side to side. So if you have hair that doesn't touch in the back and then it dips down to where it goes past the back of the collar, but in the front, then that is against regulations. And a good way to gauge this is to stand at the position of attention. It's not letting me go back. Okay, there we go. Got it, sorry about that. Assess your hair at the position of attention to make sure it is parallel across. So you can have anyone do that. I did see something in the chat though, so that's what I was trying to get at. Okay. Colonel Wiggs says yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. So pinned up hair is a very common style for females. It's just anything like a bun or a ponytail that doesn't go past your collar, of course, or touch it. So it's styled to keep loose hairs down, so no flyaways or anything like that. The most common one is for buns, and very common. There are a lot of common things. One thing that can happen a lot is called rooster tails, where some certain bits of hair stick up in pointing upwards, and that is not allowed. So one thing that I learned at my encampment, because all of our females could not properly do their hair, me included, one thing that our squadron or our flight commander had taught us was to take a little bit of gel just to barely cover your hands, and then gather your hair in the back, part it however you want or don't part it, and then tie it in the back at the nape of your neck with a very small ponytail, and then take another bit of gel and then braid your hair to as much as you can. And if you want to, and I would recommend it, to just keep it secure, add another small ponytail at the very end, and then wrap it around the base of the braid, and then add a bigger ponytail, and then add a whole bunch of bobby pins. I used about on average 15 bobby pins for my buns and hair. It was fantastic. I ruined so many bobby pins, but it's very common and it takes a lot of practice. And then I cut off all my hair and now I don't have to worry about it. So that's one thing. Only one bun is allowed. You can't have multiple. And the whole style with pinned up hair is loose ends must be secured either with hairspray, gel, or bobby pins. Scrunchies and headbands are authorized, but they may not exceed 1 inch in width, and they must be like a natural color. So I have a scrunchie right here. It's very small, and the only unauthorized part of it is this gold plastic bow right here. So if it didn't have that, then it'd be authorized because it's within 1 inch in width. So that's just an example. Another thing with accessories like bobby pins, hair ties, anything, no matter your hair color, they are allowed to be black. So if you have like blonde hair, then you can wear black accessories. If you want to go out of your way and buy hair accessories that match your hair color, go right ahead. You can do that. Moving on from that, braids are authorized. So like French braids, Dutch braids, micro braids, anything like that. They are authorized. The only thing is that they must be conservative, which is like simple and minimal, and the proper color, just like everything else. So for females, we're supposed to remove leg hair that is visibly protruding beyond the appropriate hosiery or causes a visible uneven texture. Now, I don't expect you to examine your leg hair and like, wow, this is out of regs. Just if you're wearing a skirt, then just shave your legs before you wear it. Boom, problem solved. All right, are there any questions about the female grooming standards from anyone at all? Okay, if not, then we will move on. If it will let me, there we go. Okay, cosmetics and accessories for nails and makeup. Nail polish for males is prohibited, just completely. You can't have anything on your nails. Females, you're allowed one color that does not clash with anything on your person. So what I recommend is just a simple either white nail polish or clear, just something completely plain like that. Like it says, colors must be conservative. And a French tip is authorized, which is just white nail polish on the very tip of your nail. It's authorized, nothing too special about that. For everyone, your nails may not extend past 1/4 inch from the tip of your finger. Sounds very specific, but if they look too long, just trim them. No big deal. Just like with everything else, your nails must be clean and well groomed, no dirt or like weirdness around your nails, you know. So makeup, males, it's still prohibited. Females, it must be minimal and conservative, kind of like what I'm wearing. I'm just wearing mascara and I did my eyebrows. Nothing too fancy. Prohibited shades are unnatural, just like everything. Unnatural shades are prohibited. Are there any questions on the nails and makeup side of regulations? Don't see anything in the chat. So we will move on. Piercings and dental ornamentation. Piercings for males, prohibited. For females, we're allowed one pair of either diamonds, a gold stud kind of thing, a white pearl, or silver. Again, they must be small and in good taste. They can't be too flashy or anything like that to distract people. And they must match. So you can't have like gold on one ear and then silver on the other. It doesn't look very good either. So earrings may not extend past the bottom of the earlobe with the exception of clip-ons. So if you've ever had clip-on earrings, and you would know there's like the design in the front and then there's a little hook in the back and then it clips or screws to the back of your ear. That's the only exception for things going past your earlobe. Everything else must be very small. I don't know how to gauge it, but just small. These regulations for earrings apply for everything in Civil Air Patrol. Even if you're in civilian attire, they must follow these regulations. So dental ornamentation. Now, dental ornamentation is anything that is put on your teeth for the sole purpose of adding decorative material. So like gems on your teeth, you can't have those. They're completely prohibited. Braces and medical like necessities from a dentist or doctor, those are allowed. We're not going to make you take off your braces if you want to join Civil Air Patrol. Your doctor would not like that very much. All right, are there any questions on the piercings or dental part of this? We'll check the chat. And yeah, nothing is good.
What if you need to like have a piercing in and you can't take it out because it'll close up? What do you do then?
So for that, there are certain things like you can add a clear plastic insert to piercings. You can find them at any like jewelry supply store, and then you just put those in, and then there's all that. So you can get those from.
Because I have only 2 weeks left before I take mine out.
Okay, then just wait for that time to pass, and then buy the inserts and use those when you're in Civil Air Patrol. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on. We have the cadet semi-formal dress uniform. It exists. Don't worry about it. It's basically just Class A's, but with a white shirt and a black tie. Don't worry about it. So I will pass the time over to Chief Wynn so he can talk about the males Class B's.
Now, for this part, if you could find me in the like webcam section, just pin my video so you can just see me, or just watch me. You don't have to pin me, but just have me visible is what I'm trying to
May I
say.
interrupt?
Yes, sir.
You go to the top right of your screen where it says view. If you can find that, you can click on, there's 3 choices: standard view, side by side, speaker, side by side, gallery. Click on side by side speaker, and the only picture you will see will be the speakers.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So starting from the top, while you're outside, you'll always have some sort of hat on. We call it a cover. So when you're in a blues uniform just means a formal uniform like this, right? With a tie, a collar, something like that, just not a camo. You would have this uniform on, that's called blue, or blues. So starting from the top, you would have a hat on, and this is a special hat just for the blues. For the camos, are also known as ABUs, you'll have a different hat, but we'll go into that later. So this is called a flight cap. And there's only one thing you kind of have to worry about on this thing, and that's this metal circle disc right here on the front. So this disc is called a cookie. I'm not sure why it's called a cookie, but it's called a cookie. And it will be pinned to the left side of your flight cap. So left side means when you put it on, right, it's on the left side of your body. And you would want the distance between this cookie and the leading edge of your flight cap here to be exactly 1.5 inches. So if I take my ruler here and stick it between the cookie and the leading edge, it should be exactly 1.5 inches, which it is. All right. To wear it, I usually do like this. So I would open it like so, and then I would put it on from the front to the back of my head. What this means is like this. See, from the front to the back. The reason why I do this is because some people have longer hair in the front, and you want to cover all your hair with this cover. So I do it this way. See, there's no more hair in the front. And after I put it on like this, I would always run my hand from the back to the front. This is because this top right here, it can open up. And for males, you would want to have it closed, because if you have it open like so, you would be wearing your cover like a female, and you don't want to do that. So I always run my hand from the back to the front just to make sure it's closed. And the distance between the tip of this cover here and your eyebrow should be about 2 fingers. So what I do is I just put up 2 fingers like so, put it in between my eyebrows, and just drag my cap to the point where it touches my 2 fingers, and that's the correct distance. That's the easiest way to put it on, right? That's it. Oh, also just make sure it's centered. So make sure it's centered and make sure this thing is closed. That's the most important thing. All right, next. Oh. And so next we have the male's Class B shirt. So Class B refers to this uniform right here, where you have a no service jacket, so you're not wearing a jacket, but you're wearing a tie, right? So this is a Class B, but I'm not going to go into Class A's, B, and C. I'm just going to go over this one. This one's probably the most often used blues uniform. So for this uniform and all blues uniforms, you're going to have a white V-neck undershirt underneath your blues uniform. because we don't want to be showing any other colors, so that's why you have white. It can be any brand. You can just find a V-neck white shirt. It's really simple. They're not that expensive. They're like $1 or $2. But from the top of the shirt, we have our insignias. So if you can tell, this is the incorrect insignia because I haven't gotten my new insignias yet. But the insignia must be placed 1 inch from and parallel to the front edge of the collar and centered. What this means is you want to look at the edge of your insignia here, make it point up towards you, and you want to look at the edge of your collar, and this distance between them has to be exactly 1 inch and centered. You have to make it centered on your collar. And this edge has to be parallel to here. So if I have an airman insignia, I have one right here, I would make it parallel to this little wing part right here. Not this, but this. This is what you make parallel to the front edge of your collar. And that's where the measurements are based off of. All right, and then we have a nameplate. The nameplate, oh, if you could go back, nameplate would always be on your right side. So if you raise up your right hand, this is the side your nameplate should go on. Is always on the right. And you would want to put the nameplate right above the right breast pocket. A tip to keep the nameplate from flopping around, because it's just pinned on, there's nothing there. A tip to keep it pinned on is to put a piece of cardboard behind it. So right now I have a tiny piece of cardboard I cut out of a box behind this nameplate to keep it from flopping around. So that just keeps it straight. That's something you should do. It's just a little tip. You don't have to do it, but it keeps it looking nice. And on the left side, you have your ribbons. So if you're an airman, you only have one ribbon, so it would look like just one. But you would want to put it right above your left breast pocket and centered. So if you have one, center that one ribbon right above your left breast pocket. And if you want to find the order that your ribbons are supposed to be in, I suggest going to mccord.org, and they'll ask you to enter in all the ribbons you've gotten. It shows you pictures, just click the check mark. It's really easy. I strongly support going to that page and then finding the proper ribbon order, because ribbon order matters. But that's only if you have more than one. And finally, for the tie, so there's two options for the tie. You can have a clip-on, or you can have a normal tie, right? Right now I have a tie, but it doesn't really matter. But the only thing is, or only two things are, you want the bottom of your tie to be somewhere in the area of your belt, right? It can be here, somewhere there, right? And the other thing is this tie pin. When you wear a tie, you have to have a tie pin. So you can order special cap tie pins on vanguard.com if you want to, and put it on. I'll take it off. Put it on. You just want to fold up your tie like so, to where the tip of your tie just touches the bottom of the triangle part of the top of your tie. And so you see this crease right here? There's a crease. Hold that and put your tie pin where that crease is, and then clip it to your uniform. And there we go. See, when I fold it up, half. There we go. That's all you do. Tie is really easy. And that's it for the top. Finally, actually not finally, but second to finally, we're gonna have belt and trousers. Trousers are really, really easy. Just put them on, make sure they're ironed, but I'm not gonna go into how to iron them. But there's not much to the pants. The main thing is the belt. There's a special belt you gotta wear when you're wearing blues. You have to wear this like shiny belt. The squadron will probably give one to you, but you want to put it on a certain way. I'll show you. So there's belt. There's this metal clip, and there's this shiny part. For males, you always want to feed your belt to your left. So if you raise your left hand, you want to start from the left and just feed your belt around the left side, right, like so. Because if you don't, you'd be wearing your belt like a female, and you don't want to do that again. And so behind your belt, you have this little clip, so you can move the metal forward and backwards on the actual belt. And this is important because I'll just go into that right now. You don't want any of this blue part to be showing after you put it on. What I mean is, when you put it on, there's this metal thing at the end, right? Middle tip at the end. You want this to be covering a little hole at the end of the metal part, metal buckle. So you just want to cover that little hole, clip your tie there, like so. There you go. Now you only see metal, and the rest of your belt is hiding behind everything. And finally, you want to position your belt correctly. You want the edge, the right edge of your belt, to be centered along this line right here, your zipper line and your shirt line. That's where you want to position it. Not dead center, but like position on the line. That's what you got to do with that. And now with shoes, all the way to the bottom, there are 3 choices of shoes you have when you're wearing the blues. You can have these plastic shiny shoes that you never have to polish. You can buy them off Vanguard.com, or you can wear leather shoes. Leather shoes you do have to polish every now and then, and to make them look shiny. And lastly, you can wear combat boots with your blues according to the regs, but I don't suggest doing that. It's kind of weird. So I would just go with the shiny plastic ones or leather dress shoes. But just remember not to shine plastic ones, because if you do, you might damage them, and you don't want to do that because you'll have to spend more money on them. But yeah. Oh, and with your shoes and blues, you never want to wear non-black socks because you have to wear something black. So always wear black socks. I suggest just going to, I don't know, Walmart and buying long black socks that cover your ankles. That's what I do. Pretty easy, really cheap. And to get all these uniform items that I just talked about, when you earn your Korea award, it's the first award you earn in CAP after completing basic training. You'd get a Curry voucher. So with this voucher, it gives you $100, and you can go on Vanguard.com and spend those $100 on uniform items. So that's how I got this stuff. So this is what it should look like. As you can see, the insignias are positioned correctly. The ribbons are on the left side, your left side. So if you raise up your left side, left hand, it's on the left side. That's what I mean. And the nameplate's on the right side. The tie is going over your belt in the belt area, and the tie pin is belt centered. Pretty simple, not too complex. Are there any questions?
There's one.
Do laces. Okay, so do laces need to be tucked into the shoe? Yes, the laces must be tucked into the shoe. Thank you for asking that. That's a really important question. So as you can see, my laces are tucked inside. So if I pull them out, this is how right. So if I pull them out, you tie them like a normal shoe, right? And then after you tie them, you just want to tuck them in behind all the other laces. So you don't want to show any laces because we call them snakes and kind of a tripping hazard. So we just tuck them in like so, no laces showing, looks neat and tidy. That's what you do. Let's see here. I don't see any other questions. Do you see any other questions, Chief of Park? All right, so that does it for these blues for males. And yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Chief. If you have any other questions, then feel free to ask in the chat and we will try and get to them. So moving on is the females. Yeah. So starting off with blouses and the tie tabs. There should be no military creases. So if you get it professionally ironed, then make sure to ask for no military creases. And there are two styles of blouses for females. There is the tuck-in blouse, which is kind of a normal-ish length, quote unquote normal, around like below your hips and stuff. And it should be tapered fit, just like everything else. And with this style, it must be tucked into your skirt or slacks, no matter what. And the next one is the semi-formal fitting blouse, or semi-form fitting. It's called the princess cut. So this is what I have. Ignore that I'm bunching it up, but it's a shorter kind of style. It ends above, like in the middle of your hips kind of. And it's called the princess cut because of this down at the bottom, kind of like goes in, and then a diamond or a triangle at the bottom. That's why it's called the princess cut. So this one, you're not required to tuck it in, but you can if you want to. Either one works for this style. And yeah, so that's what these blouses look like. Next is the tie tabs, which this is what it looks like. There you go. It's kind of like a triangle little circle thing. It's just a tie tab. It can be either Velcro or buttoned. Mine's a full Velcro. There's also a semi Velcro. There is a little square of Velcro at the underneath my collar, and so I can get a different style of tie tab and attach it there. Or there's a button one that you can do the same thing with, you know. One thing that can be common is that when you put on your tie tab, your collar will bunch and like cinch together. Just make sure you don't attach it too tight, and then you'll be fine. Check chat, see if you have any questions. You wore a princess cut and you got told it had to be tucked in. Well, they were wrong. It doesn't have to be cut. It doesn't have to be
Like,
tucked
I got yelled at for it. Like, they were all mad and was like, no, it has to be tucked in. I'm like, this one's a princess cut. They're like, still. I'm like,
Okay, so then if something like that happens where you know you're correct, then like show them the regulations. Be like, here it is, here are the regulations. Please don't yell at me. So yeah, sorry that happened, but just show them the regulations. Princess cut, one that's shorter. It doesn't have to be tucked in. All right. Yes, okay. Accoutrements, big fancy word for grade insignia, nameplates, and ribbons. Grade insignia is the same as Chief Wynn had discussed, the 1 inch from and parallel to the front edge of the collar and centered. That will be drilled into your head. Nameplates. So females, we don't have pockets. Joy. These are called epaulets, by the way. These like flappy things, you don't have to worry about them right now. Nameplates on the left side, they should be 1 1/2 inches higher or lower than the first exposed buttons on the wearer's right and center. I know, like, weird regulations, but it's basically just in the middle and then 1 1/2 inches below or above your first exposed button. It's easier to do that when it's on your person, so then you gauge it and then take it off and then pin it in. Ribbons are centered on the wearer's left this time, and they should be aligned with the bottom of the nameplate, parallel to the ground, all that. Yeah. Are there any questions on those? Check the chat. All right. Let's see. I don't think I skipped anything. Okay, skirts. It's a skirt. Wow. There's nothing too fancy about it. One thing to remember is it should end between the top and bottom of your kneecap. That's about it. It should have 5 belt loops, all that. If you get it from your squadron, then it should be in regulations. Slacks, they're pants, same as males pretty much. Yeah, there are a ton of regulations for these, but a lot of them just get it to fit as good as you can. Make sure it doesn't fall too far or things like that. Belts, again, same as males, but this time they face to the right. So like Chief Wynn said, you start on the left belt loops for a male, but for females, start on the right. So start looping it through on the rightmost belt loops. Then it should end facing to the right. The amount of times that I've gotten that wrong when I was an airman and a sergeant, yeah. So females, the tip faces to the right, males, it faces to the left. Any questions? Okay. Shoes, pretty much the same as males. So the low quarter, like fancy dress shoes, those are allowed, dress boots, pumps, or slip-ons. So these are the pumps. They're just so fantastic. If you've ever worn heels, they're heels. One regulation to remember is that the heels must be small. There is a specific number. I believe it's like 2.5 inches is the max amount. Mine are 1.5 inches from the base to the tip. Another thing to remember is that they can't have anything like flashy or gold or straps or anything. There's a little button back here that you can't really see. This was originally gold. You know what I did? I put black nail polish on that. No one will ever know, except for you guys. Don't rat me out. Hosiery. So if you're wearing slacks, then you can wear just plain black socks, just like with everything else. If you're wearing a skirt, then wear some tights. Nothing too fancy about that. But skin colored tights are required. Just remember that. Covers. So the position is the same as males with the cookie, or I call it device. No one else agrees with me, but it should be on the left side, 1.5 inches from the front seam or the front of the cap. So females can wear either male or female flight caps. Males, you must wear the male ones. That's about it for covers. Let's see, any questions? Check the chat. Platform heels allowed instead of regular heels. Let's see. So, what are platform heels again? I feel bad not knowing what they are, but I know that the heels can't connect. Okay, wedges, no. They must be separate from the base or sole of the heel. They must be like this, and they can't be too chunky, anything like that. All right, great. So, all right, well, let me go back. Cool. It's pretty much just the same for short sleeves, only they're short sleeves. Here is what the tie top looks like. You can like align it to match these or anything like that. There's no real regulations on how those are supposed to look. Here are where the nameplates and stuff are supposed to be. 1.5 inches below the first exposed button, and then the nameplate and ribbons are aligned. So if there are no other questions on that, then we should be good to go. Okay, so moving on to ABUs, which is what you're wearing right now, Airman Battle Uniform. Nothing can be stored visibly in the pockets, so like your phone, wallet, water bottle, car keys, they can't be completely visible, which is why the top pockets without any buttons are usually used for that, with the exception of pens in their designated pockets. So there are like these really thin pockets, those are for pens. I'm just wow, they can be visible. Your top button right here may never be buttoned, ever. Don't button it. But all of your other buttons on your pants and on your blouse, they must be buttoned at all times. It's a safety hazard and it just looks more professional. Since it's winter time right now, your guys' sleeves should be rolled down like this. And when the time comes, your squadron should be teaching you how to properly roll your sleeves. Insignia, same as Class B's, 1 inch found parallel to the front edge of the collar and centered. Right, are there any questions on that? Do not believe so. Okay. Again, nothing can be visibly stored for the pants. And blousing your pants. So there's some things called blousing bands. These are brand new. I've never used them before. They love to give extras. So they look like this. They're kind of a tan, olivey kind of thing, a woven fabric, and they have hooks on the end. You can't see it, it's too small. But how I blouse my pants is first I put on like my whole uniform, including my boots, and then I put the blousing bands above, right where my boots end, and then I hook them together, and then I just tuck in my the bottom of my pants into or underneath the blousing band, and then you have tucked boots, and then just like straighten them out, get them looking professional, all that, and then there you go, you have blouse pants. The most common authorized headgear is this one right here. You guys have probably seen it the most. There are also things called boonie hats and things like that. They're used for specific missions, but this is the most common one. It's a hat. You're not supposed to wear it inside. Do not do what I just did. It was for demonstration purposes only. So at all times outside though, it should be worn unless you're on a no hat zone, which is like a flight line or where wearing a hat or cover is a safety hazard. All right, well, my slide just changed without me doing anything. This is what the ABUs look like. Nothing too fancy. I believe there is another slide after that I will still talk about. So on your left sleeve, there's one authorized color patch, which is the wing, national, or regional patch. I have the Washington wing patch, and it should be centered on your sleeve and 1/2 inch down from the top. Pretty self-explanatory. And then right here, you can see that there are some patches on the top pockets. No patches are allowed on the bottom ones right here. Just one colored patch is authorized, except for with the exceptions of like ES stuff, but that's not very important. So there is fabric underneath these. Can you guys see my mouse cursor? I don't actually know. Okay, so there's fabric underneath these flaps, but that's basically just empty space. You can only align it off of, just center it on. All right, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat until I'm done. So you should center it between the top or the bottom of the flap and then the bottom of the original of the like pocket part, and then between the sides. Just center it. Should look good. All right. BDUs are another style of uniform. They're kind of like a dark green, more traditional camo. They're being phased out, and you guys should all have ABUs. Checking. Yeah, all looks like you guys have ABUs. Great, cool. Don't worry about BDUs. You should be wearing just ABUs. Now, where do you find all this information? The CAP regulations 39-1. This is very important. 39-1, remember that. CIPR 39-1. Remember it or write it down, whichever one's easier. It's an extremely long form, but it's pretty much just has all of your regulations. I put down where you can find most of these things that I talked about. So the men's Class Bs start in this paragraph and subparagraph. And these are the pictures. Same with women's, and then there are the pictures. And then between the Class Bs and ABUs, there's a whole bunch of like senior members section So just scroll all the way down until you see chapter 5, and there you go, ABUs and all that. See something in the chat. All right. Are ribbons worn on ABUs? No, they are not. So on the, oh yeah, this is one thing I forgot to talk about. So on the left side, on your left side, left hand, all that, should be the Civil Air Patrol name tape. When you're cutting these, give them some extra space between where you're cutting it, and then measure it, and then cut it again to make sure it's in line with the pocket. And then on the right side should be your name, like your last name. So then those are the only things worn above your pockets, no ribbons. I still have one pair of BDUs. If my ABUs are not available, can I wear my BDUs? If you're like washing your ABUs, then probably, but I would recommend washing or anything your ABUs right after meetings, so then they'll be ready for the next one. I'm pretty sure you can wear your BDUs if your ABUs are not available, but I would recommend against it. And then First Lieutenant Drevner, thank you for putting the what's it called, regulations in the chat so everyone can go look at them. BDUs are still authorized for a few more months. Yes, that is true. They are still authorized until like sometime early 2021. So you can still wear them. Yes, I correct myself. Thank you, sir. But yeah, ABUs are the primary uniform. All right, so this pretty much covers the hair and uniform part of our class. If there are any final questions, then you can put them in the chat and I will get to them. Other than that, we should be about done with this part. If there are no closing comments or questions, then I will stop my share. There's one last thing in the chat. June 1st is, okay. That sounds about right. Yeah, just primarily wear your ABUs for now unless they're not available or anything like that. All right, well, that ends the ABU or the uniform and hair section of this class. So thank you all for paying attention. And then Chief Wynn, there you go.
Thank you, Chief Picard. Now that we've covered the excellence part of our core values, we're going to move on to respect, because our next presentation is based off of customs and courtesies. Let me share this real fast. Now, customs and courtesies. Customs and courtesies falls under respect because this is what we do to treat other members of the CAP and the rest of the military. So under CAP P 151, customs and courtesies in the Civil Patrol is stemmed from the basic politeness and respect and human dignity. This basically just means that it's a mutual recognition of service and position within the CAP. And it's important to note that customs and courtesies is not a form of degradation towards others. Some people might perceive it as like you're looking up or looking down at someone, but it's not the case. You're trying to show others respect. That's why we do it. So the most simple form of customs and courtesies, and one of the most used things is the salute. For the salute, we do it because we want to render a form of respect towards a more senior member. So you would salute people that are officers and senior members who are officers. You don't want to salute anyone that is like an NCO like me. So NCO just means non-commissioned officer. It's basically all the sergeants. So only salute officers, don't salute your sergeants. Yeah. So the history of salute goes all the way back to the 18th century, back to the 1700s, I believe. So the French knights used to do this by raising their visor with their right hand. This is because usually they wield their sword with their right hand. So by raising their right hand, it means that you're not holding your sword, obviously. And by raising your visor, it's a sign of respect, saying like, I trust you, I respect you, this is me. So how to salute? We salute by using our right hand. So if everyone could just do this with me, raise your right hand, right? This is your right hand. So usually we would have it towards our side, like so, or anywhere. And what you want to do is raise your right hand up the middle of your body. So if you have one of these blue shirts on, it's where the buttons are. And ABUs also have buttons. So just run them up the buttons, basically. You want to run your hand up the buttons, up to your face. And once you get into your face area, you want to put the middle finger of your right hand on your right eyebrow. And if you have glasses, right? If you're someone with glasses, you want to put your middle finger on the top right corner of your glasses. And if you have a cover on, like the woman in the picture, you want to put your middle finger on the right corner of your cover. All right, so now everyone should have their hand on either their right eyebrow or glasses or a cover. After you do that, you want to angle your hand down by about 45 degrees. You don't want to show the inside of your hand. You want to angle it down, right? So like this. And while you're doing that, you also want to hide your thumb behind every finger. Just hide your thumb. You don't want to show your thumb. So you don't want to go like this. You don't want to go like this. You want to hide it behind your fingers. So hide your thumb. No one should see your thumb. And lastly, you want to form a 90-degree angle where your armpit is, and about a 45-degree angle where your elbow is. That is how you do a proper salute. So the salute also applies to the national anthem and the flag. So we respect the flag. That's the basic core of this. We always respect our national flag and the national anthem. So when you're in uniform, so either the blues or the ABUs, or I guess the BDUs as well, any type of cap uniform, you want to turn towards the flag while the national anthem is playing. So turn towards the flag and the national anthem is playing. And then you want to salute the flag. And if you're not in uniform, you want to just turn towards the flag, take off any hat you have on, if you have a hat on, and put your right hand over your heart. So normally in a cap ceremony, the national anthem and the flag would be displayed at the beginning with a color guard. So color guard is what you see on the left. There are just usually 4 people that hold flags and rifles. And usually they walk by you and walk back. And when they walk back or by you, if they're within 6 paces away, which basically just means 6 steps away, you want to stand at the position of attention. We're not going over drill, and the position of attention is part of drill, but the position of attention just means stand up straight and look straight forward, in a nutshell. So just always respect the flag. Addressing more senior members is also really important in customs courtesies. So you want to address the member by their rank. So let's say you come across a staff sergeant to a senior master sergeant. You want to address this person as a sergeant. This means that if they ask you a question like, are you wearing your uniform today? You would say, yes, sergeant. Or let's say you're asking them a question. Sergeant, do I have to wear my ribbons today? Something like that. So you address them as sergeant. Chief Master Sergeant is kind of a exception because it's still a sergeant, but it's a special one. It's like the top one. So for Chief Master Sergeant, like me and Chief Papard, you would address chiefs as chiefs. So yes, Chief. Chief, would you want your glasses? Would you prefer this? I don't know. But just address them as chief. Now there's also a first sergeant. First sergeants are identifiable with this white dot. I don't know if you can see it, but we'll go over it later. But first sergeants are identifiable via that dot. And you would want to call them first sergeant. So you would say, yes, first sergeant, right? First sergeant instead of sergeant. And officers. So officers just mean anyone that has a rank of lieutenant or higher. You want to call all officers sir or ma'am. So yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You don't want to call them sergeant or anything. It's highly encouraged to call them sir or ma'am. And again, the main reason why we show customs and courtesies and use customs courtesies is to show respect. It's not a sign of degradation. It's to respect others' hard work, because as you go up the rank, you learn that it takes a lot of work to like complete these milestones. The first one you'll come across is the Wright brothers, and you'll learn that it takes a lot of studying, like a lot of studying. So you just want to respect others' hard work and what they had to do to get there, and that's why we show it. Next up, we have another part of the Civil Patrol. We have the chain of command, or not chain of command. Yeah, chain of command. So the chain of command, this is just the order of leadership rules. Are you guys able to see this? No,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can. Okay, I was just wondering because I selected the other PowerPoint. But the chain of command is what holds the Civil Air Patrol together. So the chain of command usually looks something like this. You have the more senior members at the top and lower ranking usually at the bottom. So this is what it usually looks like. And I will go into each role in this PowerPoint. So the first leadership position you could possibly earn or be assigned is the role of element leader. Although this position isn't technically part of the cadet staff, it's still a leadership position. And you can show that your leadership traits in this leadership role. So the ranks of this leader usually spans from cadet airman to cadet tech sergeant. Most of you guys are within this range, so you should work towards this leadership goal. And the role of the element leader is to assist other element members in basically anything. So if any other element member has a question, you would want to come to your element leader first before you ask anyone else. This is because we want to follow the chain of command. You want to go to the most bottom first and then work your way up. You don't want to jump all the way up to the cadet commander, because you're just going to jump past everyone, and the cadet commander is probably doing something more important than answering something like, are my boots polished correctly? Something like that, right? So you want to ask your element leader first. And another role that the element leader does is the element leader typically leads in drill, not like calling drill, but leads in column formation. This just means that they are the first to execute the formation. And again, I'm not teaching drill, so you'll probably learn this later. The next leadership position is the flight sergeant. The flight sergeant's rank usually spans from cadet staff sergeant to cadet chief master sergeant. The flight sergeant is subordinate to the flight commander. This just means that the flight sergeant takes orders from the flight commander. And the role of the flight sergeant is to lead the flight and drill, mentor other flight members, and assist the flight commander in the goals and lesson plan. So the flight sergeant is usually the one that talks to you the most, because they're going to be the one that gives you all the instructions for weekly meetings. So if your element leader doesn't know the answer to your question, the next person you would go to is the flight sergeant. So let's say you ask your element leader if your boots are polished correctly, and your element leader does not know. You would then go to your flight sergeant. Then your flight sergeant typically would know the answer to most of your questions, because the flight sergeant has been through your position and have been in your situation, because they've been in the program longer. So 99% of the time they'll know the answer, right? So yeah. After the flight sergeant, we have the flight commander. The flight commander, the ranks usually span from cadet chief master sergeant to cadet captain. Their role is to set goals and plans for the flight, and is subordinate to the cadet commander. The flight commander just has to, again, make plans and goals, but also mentor the flight sergeant. And let's say the flight sergeant doesn't know the answer to your question. Instead of you asking the flight commander your same question again, usually what would happen is your flight sergeant would then ask your flight commander. So sometimes they would redirect you to the flight commander, and then in that case, you would ask the flight commander some question, but most of the time, your flight sergeant would ask for you and get back to you. Next up, we have the first sergeant. The first sergeant is what I am and what Chief Papard is. So the first sergeant usually is a master sergeant to a chief master sergeant. And the role is to lead PT, upkeep standards, keep things on schedule, and mentor the junior staff. The first sergeant is subordinate to the cadet commander, and usually you don't hear from the first sergeant personally, so the first sergeant wouldn't talk to you on your own. Usually the first sergeant would address the squadron as a whole, because there's only one first sergeant per squadron. So for the most part, the first sergeant would talk to the squadron as a whole. And lastly, we have the cadet commander and the deputy commander. These two will be the ones that are making the plans and goals for the entire squadron. They're basically the administrative role of like the cadet part of Civil Patrol and your squadron. Most likely, you probably won't be talking to them unless they come to you or like something like that. But you don't want to ask them a simple question. You want to ask your flight sergeant or your element leader first. There are other staff roles other than the line staff. So I just covered the line staff, which are the people who you come in contact with the most. There are also like support staff and other leadership roles. And those roles will typically plan other events, but you would probably not see them too often, but those do exist. And that concludes the chain of command. So now we're going to talk about promotions real fast. Promotions are really crucial because this is how you come up and rank up in the chain of command. You want to like get new experiences in CAP and learn as much as you can. So this is why we rank up and get new leadership roles, right? So with that, me and Chief Papard are going to conclude this with our tips and tricks to rank up and promote.
All right, well, I guess I will first just say my quick bit. What I do to help myself promote is write down everything that I read pretty much. There are bolded words and sentences in the leadership books. I just write all of those down and then organize them. And I think that really helps with gathering important information very quickly and all that. For the aerospace books, those are a little bit more difficult because they don't have those fantastic bolded words. But what I do is, since they're shorter, I would read them twice. And And then since all the tests are open book, use your books. They're so helpful. Because if you don't, then you can fail it very easily and stall and stuff. So those are my tips. Just write down your information, read the books twice or as many times as you want, and set deadlines for yourself for when you want to promote, when you want to take those tests, and things like that. So you promote every 56 days if you want to, because it's not required to promote every 56 days, but it is recommended. That's what I have to say. So Chief Wynn, you can give your little tips.
Yeah, so every 56 days, you are eligible to promote again. What this means is you just have to be your rank. So you have to hold your rank for minimum 56 days, right? So after 56 days, you're eligible to promote again. But this does not mean you cannot take your tests. So right after you promote to the next rank, right? So if you go from Airman to Airman First Class, right after you get promoted, you can take your tests. So what I would do is after I promote, I would study for my tests, right? And then take my test before the 56 days come up. So when you do this, you would be eligible to promote on the 56th day. So that means you can rank up in minimum time and rank up real fast. That's what I would do. And what I would do to study is like what Chief Apard said. I would read the book. Taking notes is useful, but personally, I don't do that all the time. There's questions in the book. So if you read the book, there's little sections that are at the end of every chapter, and they have questions. So what I do is I read all the questions, and if I can answer all or most of the questions they give you, then you would most likely be ready for the test and you would pass on your first try. And I was told that you can control F on the milestone tests, but I would not recommend doing that all the time, because when you get to the milestone tests, you have to do a closed book test with a proctor. So I would not recommend doing Control F all the time, because then you're not learning, because that's the whole point of doing these tests. You're trying to learn. So I would not recommend that all the time. You can, but it's iffy, right? It'll help you, but once you get to the milestones like the Wright brothers, you'll need to study everything and know everything on the top of your head, because you won't be able to do that. That's just my recommendations. So with that, Chief Apard, do you have anything else?
No, I do not believe so. I think that, wraps up everything we have for this class. If there are any closing questions or anything for either of us, then feel free to put them in the chat real quick, and we will answer those quickly.
So just type your questions in chat or something like that. But keep in mind, this class was just a distilled version of what we'd usually cover, because usually we have a whole weekend to do this, but we're trying to do everything in about 1.5 hours, and it's impossible to do that. If you felt like this was rushed, it was, because we had to cover a lot of stuff in such a little chunk of time. So I really recommend taking this class in person when it comes back, because then we'd be able to show you how to wear your uniform correctly and show you in person everything. So it's a lot easier in person.
I definitely recommend coming back to the in-person llama when it hopefully starts back up soon. Fingers crossed.
All right, so we have a question. Will this recording be available to other cadets?
I believe so. That is a question for Colonel Wiggs, if he's still here.
He's definitely still here. We are recording it, and we are working on a platform to be able to share that.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
And the next one is about saluting. Do we salute foreign military personnel and foreign dignitaries? I don't think so, because they're not part of our military. So I do not believe so, but correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone else knows the answer to that.
You would salute salute a friendly foreign nation. So if we're an ally with someone, you would salute them, but you wouldn't salute foreign nations that we're not allies with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. You also posted in the chat the regulations for saluting on page 25, CAPP 60-33. So thank you for posting a lot of the regulation pamphlet thingy forms. Definitely go check those out. They're very important. Thank you for the compliment about this is good, more in depth. Thank you, Airman Glebe.
You're welcome. Like when we do Great Start, it's like very complicated. Like no one understands what's being said. There's a lot of confusion. So this was more in depth and helped clear it up a lot. Like my 2 things with the whole princess cut thing and then the salute thing. I was told I had to. I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, there are some regulations that people like to throw around, but just follow the book definitions and regulations and you should just be fine. And then tell people, this is where the regulation is. Please don't yell at me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that this helped a lot. There are no other questions. Then thank you all for joining us tonight or this afternoon for the Airman Leadership School. Colonel Weber or Colonel Wiggs, is there anything else we should say?
No, thank you to both of our instructors. I'm going to throw a quick poll up there asking for your feedback. The unfortunate drawback of these polls is there's no area for free texting. So if you have any suggestions for future classes, etc., please feel free to email me regarding that. I'm going to launch the poll now. For those of you that weren't in this morning's class, there are going to be participation letters sent out by Colonel Weber for being a part of this. Please share that participation letter when you get that with your commander, unit commander, and your personnel officer so that it can be included into your personnel records, and keep a copy for yourself as well. So as the poll is going, I'm opening up the floor to anyone with questions. You can interrupt me or I'll do a stream of consciousness.
Can I make a comment just real quick about following regulations?
Yes.
So if your flight sergeant tells you something that you know in the regulations to be not true, you definitely want to make sure that you've read the regulations correctly and know what it says. But if your flight is doing drill and you're out on the drill pad, stopping your first sergeant and says, hey, I know exactly what the regs say, you're wrong, and I'm going to do it the correct way anyway, might not necessarily be the most respectful way to bring that up to your flight sergeant at that point. So out of respect for your command, just follow the directions that are given, and then maybe afterwards outside in a more private setting, you can talk to your flight sergeant and say, hey, I looked in the regulations, this is what it says, and is this something that you're aware of as well, and try and move forward it on there. But just make sure that you're being respectful when you do know what the regulations say, and that you're not starting a big argument in front of your flight, because that's not something that's productive to your flight mates or your flight sergeant. So just make sure that you do that as respectfully as possible.
All right. Good point. And one comment on the saluting outside of CAP. There could be some confusion on, you see one of your officers in civilian clothes. You don't salute in that circumstance, but you are saluting the uniform per se. Colonel Maxwell, would you agree with that anecdote?
True, and again, a salute is a sign of respect, and it's not like you're going to be yelled at if you go up to your squadron commander that you see outside and he's not in uniform and salute them. You know, they're probably going to say.
All right. All right. Looks like we've got the poll complete. I'm going to share the results. And you are able to scroll through that on your end of it to see the
Okay.
results. Very good.
I'd just like to do the advertising and say, if you've got some value out of this, make sure you're looking at our, I believe it's 9 January is our next virtual WAMA, and they'll be advertising in about probably the next 5 days on what those classes are, and just go ahead and sign up. It's not that we have a maximum people, or at least some classes might have a limit, but most of them don't. But yes, take a look at it, and we welcome you back for another class.
All right. At this point, I am going to stop the recording.